Well, good morning and welcome to this day's taping of the 4 and 3 podcast, which will get underway just momentarily here while we set up and finish setting up. Trey, have the cicadas hit you yet?
No, not yet, but I know they're coming. So, and I'm about to, at the end of the week for vacation, I'll be heading south, which I know they're already in some of the south, and they're in apparently in DC and like Northern Virginia. So it seems like they're closing in on Central Virginia, and they will be here soon.
I have a burning question about cicadas. Maybe somebody in the Brain Trust knows this answer, but if they're in the ground, and we know that they're sitting there nesting in the ground for all this time, and this area is going to come up in 2017, and this one's in 2021, and this one's in 2024. Why don't we just kill them in the ground before they come out and destroy everything and annoy us?
I don't know. I mean, it's maybe it's the same argument as like we have to save the bees. Like, I don't know. Maybe they're critical to the environment. I don't really know. All I know is that they're straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah. As I'm going to say on the podcast here in a moment, they're straight out of Exodus 7 through 11. That's what they are. They're plagues. God sent plagues to plague as a punishment, as a judgment. And
well,
now we get
now it's just like akin to eating our vegetables. You just have to put up with them now.
They're so loud. They're so annoying. There was a golf tournament on over the weekend, and it was in Ohio, and the cicadas were out there. And in golf, they put the microphones out around the course so you can kind of hear the natural ambiance. And you just couldn't. It was insufferable. I couldn't believe that somebody wasn't like, "Hey, we need to turn these mics off and just have only the announcers in the booth," because it was all you could hear was the cicadas. It was agonizing.
Well, I suppose that was the natural ambiance there was the buzzing of cicadas. So they wanted you to make sure that you weren't missing out on that.
Yeah.
So also, side note, I'm looking at, looks like we kind of coordinated our t-shirts here. Like we're both Disney and Marvel.
Marvel, yeah. I've got the old Captain America shirt on, which I've had long before.
He's always a good
Marvel.
choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You kind of are fitting into the stereotype, Dan. There is not a dad in America that does not have the Captain America t-shirt for July 4th. I don't know of any dad who doesn't have one. It is the dad Independence Day t-shirt.
All right. Well, that's way more thought than I put into it, because honestly, when I got this shirt, I got this shirt years ago, and I buy t-shirts based on comfort. There's like a certain kind that have, I don't know what it is, but they've got that vintagey, the worn look almost, but it's always a shirt that's a little softer than the other ones. And that's why I get it. I don't really care about, I didn't really put any thought into what was on it. I was just like, oh, that one looks kind of faded and soft, and I don't hate the symbol on it, so I'll get it. I didn't even really know what it was when I got it, so to be honest with you.
That's also probably a dad thing.
Yeah. Just more admitting that I'm a full dad mode. Just give me the shirt, whatever.
It sounds like something my dad would say. It's like, well, it does the job.
It does the job.
A t-shirt is just a utility. If it works, get it for me.
Exactly. Oh man, it's happened. It's happened. I'm 46, and that has happened to me. I never thought I'd see the day, but here it is. So, all right, great. With that realization, I guess we can just get started with the taping. So, all right. Here we go. Stand by.
Faithwire.com.
Well, hello and welcome to 4 and 3, a podcast breaking down 4 of the most important stories of the day and 3 things you need to know about them, all from a Christian perspective. Today's Wednesday, June 9th, 2021. I'm Dan Andros. Coming up on the podcast today, the border crisis is getting worse and worse, according to an exclusive CBN report. We'll have the details there. And a judge has reinstated a Virginia teacher who was suspended for refusing to use kids' preferred pronouns. And demonic cicadas, yes, I added that, demonic cicadas are showing up on weather radars. Demonic. 3-time cancer survivor on AGT, America's Got Talent, actually brings Simon Cowell to tears. Great story of triumph there. We'll have the details with Trey Goins-Phillips from Faithwire.com. Trey, how's it going?
It's good. I was reading the other day, or I saw a notification on my Amazon Echo thing, that the FDA is telling people if they're allergic to seafood to not eat cicadas. My immediate question was, who is eating cicadas to begin with?
I would hope nobody. I mean, John the Baptist is out roaming around somewhere. Maybe he is. But, I did see a bunch of the climate alarmist type people were like trying to, hey, you want to be friendly to the environment. It's time to eat bugs. And it's just like, nope, not hopping on that bandwagon. Sorry about whatever cause they're pushing there, but not eating bugs, and certainly not eating cicadas. They are horrific looking. I don't know how anyone could look at them and think,
I also want to know what PETA thinks of this, because I know that they're all in on animals, but I don't.
Right.
Are they
all in
are
on
bugs
insects?
Also?
Yeah.
Yes. Do they also need to be protected? And then, more specifically than bugs, do cicadas need to be protected?
Yeah.
Cicadas is kind of like protecting roaches. Like nobody likes them. Nobody.
Yeah. No, nobody. And my rule with the kids, because I don't want the kids to just be like all crushing animals they see outside. And I tell them, look, just let them live unless they're invading our house. If they're invading our house, then they've made a grave mistake, and we need to get rid of them. So
right.
That's kind of where I draw the line. If they're trespassing on my house and trying to invade and get into our pantry or whatever else they're doing, then they got to go. It's just that.
It's
simple.
kind of like castle doctrine, but for bugs.
Yeah, for bugs.
I can defend my property if you step on
Yeah.
it. As long as you stay in your place and your lane, you're fine. But you step into my property, I'm in charge now.
Yeah. By the way, did you know Nicole Kidman went on some sort of a bug eating spree at one time? I was down some YouTube rabbit hole one day and somehow found Nicole Kidman eating bugs.
It's eating bugs,
and it's disgusting.
I mean, you wonder, like
somebody, like a champ.
Somebody who's as successful as she is, there's no reason for her to be eating bugs.
No,
you could eat anything on Earth.
Anything you want. Have your chef whip up anything. You don't need to go out in the backyard picking bugs. You're good.
That's right.
It's insulting to people who have to eat bugs. Yes. All right. Let's hop right into story number one here, and it is from McAllen, Texas, where CBN News has an exclusive interview with several residents down there who are dealing with the continuing border crisis. And right now, the increase of people illegally crossing the border isn't just affecting law enforcement. Local landowners and ranchers are dealing with uninvited guests trespassing on their property, breaking into their homes and sheds, and damaging their gates and fences. It just seems to be getting worse and worse. Resident Justin Capadona told CBN News, he said, "We've had groups come into our backyard and approach us looking for food and water. And I work 25 to 35 miles in town. And my wife's out here by herself, so it's a safety issue. It's a safety concern," he said. He also added that it was bad during the Obama years. It kind of slowed down during Trump. But he said in the last 3 months, we've seen an uptick, unfortunately. I've seen anywhere from 15 to as many as 30 people come out of one vehicle. He also said he's constantly repairing damage to his personal property, like his fences and gates that are struck by vehicles that are actually fleeing law enforcement. And then he's left to pay the bill. And he says what's happening, as you can see, vehicles will be coming down if they're being chased by Border Patrol or a sheriff, which happens a lot of the time. At some point, they'll decide they can't get away, so they end up just crashing through the fence, and they take a couple of posts here, bring down a fence there, and then they'll get out onto the main road, and then they'll continue on into the ranch. And so a neighboring rancher who decided to remain anonymous told CBN News that the trespassing groups are getting more frequent and aggressive, armed with high-powered weapons. They're finding everything from drugs to dead bodies on their property. How do we fix it? I don't know. Probably a combination of border wall and immigration policies, added the rancher. So Governor Abbott recently launched Operation Lone Star, which deployed the Texas National Guard to tackle the issue, to try to improve air, ground, and marine security there on the border. And a Sheriff Roy Boyd, told CBN News that the governor's doing the right thing to try to do something down here, but it has a ripple effect that causes an overall negative impact on our communities throughout the state. He said his county is still feels the problems at the border, where he says they have staff sites that the cartels are using to store illegal aliens, to strip stolen trucks, to store and move drugs toward larger markets in Houston. But he said the resources being used to address all these immigration issues means that there's less for law enforcement and helping local citizens in that way. And he said, so to be frank, that's the problem we have with all these efforts, is that none of them are designed to actually win the war that we're facing with our neighboring country of Mexico and the cartels that reside there. He's like, got to quit putting a Band-Aid on the chest wound and have to go to war and have to go after what's happening. We have to have a comprehensive plan that stops it on the other side of the river. And so what's the left saying here? Well, this report comes on the heels of Kamala Harris, the vice president, mocking that she's, when asked about being to the border, she said, well, she's not been to Europe either. And then awkwardly laughed about that. She also explicitly told people, do not come. Now that the pressure's been kind of put on her about this obvious crisis happening at the border. And then what's the right saying? Well, the right has called out Harris and the Biden administration for this, this hypocrisy that's going on. I mean, Trump was called racist and everything else for wanting to build a wall. And then now they can say, don't come, and there's no consequences there. So there's the obvious double standard. So why does it matter? Well, Trey, as we've mentioned before, on this podcast, it just matters because people around the world are getting that false impression that they're just going to be able to sail through our borders and come on over and just hop on in. And that's actually not the case, even though Biden has used that welcoming language when he was on the campaign trail. And only now you hear the administration saying, don't come. The fact of the matter is the Border Patrol is still turning away most people. So even though they're saying that and they use that issue to sort of hit Trump and try to win votes, the reality on the ground is pretty much the same, except now there's just more people trying to flood in.
Yeah, and it's frustrating that this is just an issue that's over and over again is used kind of as a political, I don't like baton that they just pass back and forth from party to party, and nothing is ever actually done about it. At least not, nothing legally, nothing in law is done. There are different actions that different administrations take, some good and some bad. There are some good things that Trump did to kind of slow down the migration, but then all of it ends up just being undone, just like with any president, because so much of it is through executive action and even just the words that they're using, like with Biden, he's using all of this flowery language, and sending a really open message, and then it ends up being chaotic at the border, like what we're seeing. It's just complete and total chaos. And I know this is not directly related to the story, but I have to mention, I don't understand the cookie fiasco that happened for anybody who was on social media with Kamala, with Vice President Harris, she going over to Guatemala. She's on the airline, on the airplane with reporters. She goes back to reporters and hands them out cookies, and the cookies are literally profiles of her face. It's just like, that is so bizarre. Like, it's just, and I know, I will be the first to admit to you, Donald Trump has an ego. I mean, there's no doubt that Trump, the man who puts his name in gold everywhere, certainly has an ego. So no arguments there. But this just seems like quite the ego move there.
Right.
Too.
And especially, I mean, I don't know what she was doing specifically in Guatemala, but was it not partially addressing the flow of migrants coming in there? It's like you've got these people living in horrid conditions, but let's eat cookies with my face on it in the middle of it. It doesn't seem like it's in good taste at that particular time. It seems like a bad idea. When you're going to an impoverished country, I know a lot of Christians do mission trips down there to try to help, people who are struggling to get by. And, you're going out there getting personalized cookies on your giant plane on the way down there. It's just, I don't know how anyone can be so unself-aware to say, no, don't do the cookie thing. Just if you want to hand out cookies, just hand out cookies. Why does it have to be me? I mean, someone had to approve that. And yeah, that's a great idea. Make them look just like me, huh? Nah, come on. Terrible idea. So
Yeah. But anyway, I think, more importantly, I think the CBN report just kind of shows that as Christians, it's a tough situation, regardless of where you fall politically. So it's just something that I think we need to be praying about, because so many of these people who are coming to the border, whether they should be or not, that's, we can debate that. But the fact is they're there, and a lot of them need help. So as Christians, I think we should need to be praying, and if we've got resources, giving to ministries that are working there. If you're in the area, going there and doing what you can to be a part of it. But like I said, most importantly, just we know that prayer is powerful. So as believers, certainly be praying for our leaders and for the people at the border.
Absolutely.
So, all right, story number 2. So a circuit court judge ruled Tuesday in favor of a Northern Virginia physical education teacher who was placed on leave after he said he would not affirm transgender identities for his students. So Judge James Plowman issued a temporary injunction to Tanner Cross, who had filed a lawsuit against Loudoun County Public Schools, according to the law firm representing him, which is Alliance Defending Freedom. The Cross was suspended in late May for saying during an LCPS board meeting that he wouldn't lie by affirming to students that, quote, a biological boy can be a girl, or vice versa. I love all my students, but I will never lie to them regardless of the consequences, he said at the time. I'm a teacher, but I serve God first, and I will not affirm that a biological boy can be a girl and vice versa, because it's against my religion, it's lying to a child, it's abuse to a child, and it's sinning against our God. So the policy Cross opposes states that school staff shall, at the request of a student or parent or legal guardian, when using a name or pronoun to address the student, use the name and pronoun that corresponds with their gender identity, their chosen gender identity. Plowman condemned the school system for suspending Cross. He said LCPS's decision was, quote, unconstitutional, and rebuked administrators for their vindictive handling of the situation. Cross's interest in expressing his First Amendment speech outweighs the school's interest in restricting the same, the judge said, noting the teacher did not serve to meaningfully disrupt the operation or services of Leesburg Elementary School. He said, what he said was not disruptive, so there was no reason that he needed to be suspended at all from his position, because that was initially what the principal said, was he was being disruptive and needed to be suspended. The judge said there's no truth to that. So what's the left saying? Well, this has been an argument back and forth between conservatives and progressives for some time. The left, though, has argued that these things need to be mandated in schools and elsewhere in the name of tolerance and inclusivity. And what's the right saying? Well, conservatives have pointed out that, as is the case with Cross, these policies often end up being intolerant and exclusionary of Christians who hold to biblical understanding of marriage and sexuality, and even of conservatives who might not be Christian, who don't want the government mandating these kinds of things. So why does it matter? I think this is a big victory for Cross and for religious liberty. I'm certain, Dan, that this is just the beginning of this issue, not just for Cross, but for others who will face similar kinds of discrimination for their religious views. And that's what this is. It was an attempt at discrimination against Cross for being a Christian. So I think it's important to note here that Cross, wasn't even speaking of a legitimate, bona fide transgender student in his classroom. He was sharing his views about a hypothetical situation regarding a policy that was up for debate during a school board meeting. And for that, he was suspended.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why this was ever a news story to begin with. His comments were not at all out of line, and they were just expressing during an open debate his perspective.
Yeah, it was a thought crime. I mean, is what he got punished for there.
Exactly.
And even still, I think, again, the common theme that we are facing here today, and I think this is going to be one of the big issues of our time and the next generation coming forward, is how do we deal with this political correctness? And, you're just going to encounter speech you don't like. You're going to encounter ideas you don't like. You are never going to ever in the history of the world, past, present, future, going to get all people to agree on all things. Just not going to happen. So, the best we can do is learn how to, as the bumper sticker says, coexist. Does anyone actually really mean that? they don't mean that. They want you to conform instead of it coexist. They don't want to coexist. And so, I mean, I think you could rally people, together and say, hey, we're going to disagree on some things, but let's not be canceling people from society, cancel them from their jobs, make them afraid to speak. We're raising a generation of softies, really, who just aren't going to be able to deal with any different opinion. If you hear different opinion, they're going to be trained to say, oh my goodness, these words are harming me and I'm going to wilt, wilt like a little dying flower and fade away just because somebody has a different opinion or they don't like me or whatever the case may be. I mean, it's just, it's a nonsense direction we're going in. I think, what is it? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. And it's like, we're going there. I mean, it was, I understand the motive. People want to make sure, they want to help people, but I just don't think this is going to end well. And it's not going to have the result people wanted.
Yeah. And Megyn Kelly has talked about the issue of unity a lot on her own podcast. Like she said that when Biden started talking about unity during his inaugural address and has continued to say with his words that he wants to be unifying, but then he's passed, and promoted all these executive orders or legislation that's really is divisive, like the Equality Act or like his decisions on transgenderism, whatever. She said unity is not actually possible. Like that's not something we should be striving for. We should be striving for decency toward people because, like you said, Dan, there are always going to be people who have different points of view, different perspectives, different convictions. And if our goal is unity, it's going to end up where it's just going to be like with a cudgel, our leaders are going to force conformity. And that's not, I don't think, what anybody wants. Nobody should want. So we really just need to have an actual tolerance, which I don't know that we've ever actually enjoyed as a society. We need to, really be open to tolerating different ideas and just be decent to one another. Don't assume that people's motives are by default nefarious.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what the judge was saying. He said also that these are his, sincerely held religious convictions. He wasn't trying to discriminate, to be evil, to be mean. This is what he believes, and he should be respected for believing that, just like people who disagree with him should be respected for disagreeing with him.
Yep. Amen to all that. And look, we have to find areas where we can find common ground on. And I think story number 3, I would hope, is an area that we can find some common ground on. And that, of course, Trey, would be these demonic cicadas. And yes, I'm editorializing that because I just don't see that there's any other way to describe them as demonic. And as it's described here, a swarm of bugs so immense that it's showing up on weather radar is happening right now with cicadas, according to the National Weather Service. You can actually see it on the digital radar maps. And it says they actually tweeted out, you may have noticed a lot of fuzziness on our radar recently. The hydrometer classification algorithm shows much of it to be biological in nature. Our guess, probably the cicadas. Users were actually joking it looked like a Category 5 cicada storm, and they're not wrong. And so one scientist said that he seemed a little too excited about it, in my opinion. He said, for 17 years, they've been underground living a COVID-like existence. I see what he did there. Social distancing. But in the 17th year, they come up, usually at nightfall, and they make a mad dash to the trunk of a tree or another vertical structure. Their exoskeleton or skin splits open. I mean, that's just demonic. I mean, this sounds something like from a horror movie. And then he says, and the, quote, beautiful adult cicada, that's debatable, comes out. This is Michael Raup, a professor at the University of Maryland. He said, this is our Super Bowl. Absolutely, for entomologists. We've been looking forward to this. This guy's also known as the bug guy. Okay. I've got some comments on the bug guy here in just a second, but he's talking about the March before the cicadas began to emerge. He called it, and he said it would be a spectacular event. And WSB TV reported in April that it sounded like a biblical prophecy as billions of cicadas would be descending upon the state of Georgia And the station noted that the bugs would be hard to miss because their mating calls can reach up to 100 decibels. And that's not exaggerating if you've ever heard them. That's the same magnitude of sound that a lawnmower produces. And I can tell you from experience, having mowed my lawn when we've had cicadas here, it was a couple years ago, we had a bad burst of them. They, you could hear them over the lawnmower as I'm mowing the lawn. Just insane. And so, awful creatures, and just, I don't even know why they exist, but I don't like that they do, but again, Trey, it's not a right or left issue here. Again, hopefully it would be like some sort of a uniting issue here, but I got a few thoughts on this bug guy here. First of all, don't compare a massive bug infestation with the Super Bowl. Okay? It's a plague. It is a plague. I mean, think Exodus 7 through 11 here. That's what we're talking about. We're not a fun game Super Bowl where the biggest thing is we complain about the halftime show. God sent them as a punishment, is a judgment. Honestly, look, I'm not into questioning the salvation of people. That's for between God and the people. But I mean, if you're enjoying basically plagues and you're having a fun time and calling it the Super Bowl, I'm just saying you should question your status for eternity. Just saying, I'm just throwing it out there, just spitballing. If you like bugs that much, I don't know. I question you.
I saw yesterday. I don't necessarily disagree. I think, but I also think that people who really like snakes have a problem.
Yeah, it is. Odd.
I think
it's odd.
I think there's something that is not quite right in their mental makeup. If they're a really big fan of snakes or of bugs and spiders, it's just. Yeah, I mean, I'm thankful for the people who study it, I guess, because we should know, like, this is a dangerous one and this one's not a dangerous one, because the worrier in me likes to know, like, okay, I don't need to be worried if I get bitten by this. But like you said, to equate it to something like the Super Bowl just seems a tad bit too far. But I noticed yesterday on Twitter, somebody shared a screenshot of the radar reading showing that
and I'm
cloud over
that picture,
over Washington D.C. And somebody said, I don't know what this is. What is this? And the reporter tweeted back and said, it's happiness. Don't worry, it'll be gone soon. Because it was over Washington D.C. I just had to laugh at that.
That's solid, absolutely. But yeah, let's just pray that this isn't that these cicadas aren't actually a plague being sent on us and some sort of judgment.
Yes.
Because they're awful. They're awful things, and I see no positivity in it. Maybe there's some positive benefit, as you mentioned in the pre-show there, that we don't know as non-bug guys, but just and kill them in the ground. I don't know why we don't just kill them in the ground. We know they're in the ground waiting. Why don't we just kill them before they come out?
Right.
Like, again, I mean, if they have some use, I'd like to know about it, because doesn't seem obvious, doesn't seem self-evident. So,
but in the meantime, I suppose you could take a tennis racket out and just like see how far you can hit them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's inhumane of me. I shouldn't have said that. I don't know.
I won't. I won't call you out for it. I will not rat you out for taking down a few cicadas. So,
all right. So story number 4, by the way, is a lot more positive.
Good. Good. We need it.
So, yes, it's a very uplifting story, unlike the cicadas.
Yes.
On last night's episode of America's Got Talent, Jane Marcheski, a 3-time cancer survivor who goes by the stage name Nightbird, absolutely wowed the judges and even brought Simon Cowell to tears. So she sang one of her original songs called It's Okay, which she told the judges is a story of the last year of my life. So here's a little bit of background. Jane and I are not close friends, but we both went to Liberty University at the same time and crossed paths with one another. She was kind of a mini celebrity in Lynchburg. Everyone knew she was going to make it pretty big just because she had such an incredible voice, such a charismatic, dynamic personality. And then she was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, and she started the hashtag #SeeJaneWin online, and she did. She beat it. Then the cancer came back more aggressively in January of last year after she went on a small tour in Europe. It was in her lungs, her liver, her spine, her ribs, and even her lymph nodes. And just days after she got that news, her husband told her he was leaving her. And then just weeks after that, the pandemic began. So last night was a bright light at the end of a tunnel that's been pretty dark, and Simon ended up giving her the golden buzzer on the episode. And here's a small portion of their conversation with one another.
There was something about that song after the way you just almost casually told us what you're going through, and
You can't wait until life isn't hard anymore before you decide to be happy.
There are, however, there have been some great singers this year. And I'm not going to give you a yes. I'm going to give you something else.
So obviously that was when he, instead of giving her a yes, he gave her the golden buzzer, and Jane fell on the ground and started crying, and he ended up walking onto the stage, Simon did, and they hugged each other, and he told her how incredible she was. So just a really, really incredible story of just human triumph and what God can do and is doing through Jane, who is a Christian. So she said, Dan, later, that she's been given only a 2% chance of beating the cancer she's still fighting. But she said she's always so hopeful and optimistic. She said 2% is not 0%, and 2% is something, and I wish people knew how amazing that is.
Yeah.
So in an interview published this morning with People magazine, Simon said that he was absolutely mesmerized by Jane and even started to cry. If you go and watch the video on Faithwire, he described her as an amazing person with an incredible talent. So yeah, it's going to be an incredible story to follow. I'm super proud of her. Like I said, we're not close friends, but I knew her, and to see how far she's come is really incredible.
Yeah. Well, and you guys weren't wrong to all kind of know that she was, destined to be noticed. I mean, she has a great voice, and her personality obviously kind of shone through in the middle of that. And also too, I will say, she sang an original song, and it was about her experience over the last years and the challenges she was facing and whatnot. And she seems, and I read her blog, and she seems to be a really great writer.
She is,
which is an underrated skill in all of the things that she's going viral for here over the last 24 hours or so, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, tough circumstances, especially in the midst of the cancer, to then have the marriage fall apart for whatever reason, and your heart, you can't help your heart but go out to her, and just keep praying that God's glorified through whatever happens with her going forward, and praying for nothing but the best for her, for sure, because we could all use a lot more of seeing somebody with a talent like that. I mean, that was heartbreaking to watch, because her health situation, but also what a great talent.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, she started in 2017 the hashtag #SeeJaneWin.
Yeah.
And now she's revived the hashtag, and now it's #SeeJaneWin AGT. So we'll see. I definitely will be rooting for her this season. And and Terry Crews, the host of AGT, he said at the end that regardless of what people think about the rest of the series, the rest of this season, he said your story is one that America needs. It's an uplifting story, and a story of hope and faith that the country just definitely needs right now, and we're so divided. So I look forward to seeing her on more episodes, because she's just a light, I think. That's encouraging.
Yeah, and you wonder how many because Terry Crews is a Christian, and you wonder how many stories like this where somebody's facing adversity and facing obviously a life-threatening adversity, a health issue, facing it with faith. You wonder how many of these stories Simon's going to see before he finally cracks and investigates this Christianity thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's certainly seen a bunch of those, right, over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And he's I love Simon. He's my absolute favorite judge. I liked him when he was on American Idol because he just has his finger on the pulse of talent. So when he gives you his vote, I think that's a good omen, a good sign for the future. But I certainly do hope you're right, Dan. I think that the more stories he sees like this, I hope maybe eventually it'll spark a curiosity about where are they getting this hopefulness from.
Yeah. And I'll also say this about Simon. I think the reason he's so popular, aside from being a keen judge of talent and shrewd with that, I think he's also willing to criticize when everyone can see that maybe somebody's not quite as good, or even if they're good, like here's why they're not as good as the top people or whatever the case may be. He's willing to critique that. And so that makes his actual praise more valuable. And today we're living in a society where the exact opposite is true. You want to just be praised and paid and everything else for just existing. And so I think we all can see through the folly of that. And there's this big facade that society's putting up right now, and just this faux empty praise that means nothing. It really means nothing, and it's empty, and it might fill you up for a second, but then it's just going to go away. And so I think. Simon's, that's the reason he's valuable and his opinion is valuable, because it means something when he actually praises you. Otherwise, it's just empty and it's just, platitudes. Otherwise,
well, and I think that's what makes moments like last night with Jane even more powerful, right? Is because everybody knows Simon doesn't give out participation trophies.
Right.
So if he gives you a golden buzzer, if he gives you his yes vote, he means it.
Yeah.
So it just adds to the credibility, his credibility, and also the credibility of Jane's talent.
Yes.
So
yeah, and a lesson that we could all take here in society and in our PC culture that we're talking about. So. All right, that's all the time we have for this episode of 4 and 3. Be sure to follow us on the iTunes, on YouTube, wherever else you can get a podcast. Go ahead and follow it there. And head on over to cbnnews.com and faithwire.com for more news from a Christian perspective. We'll be back here again tomorrow with more of the top stories. So God bless. We'll see you then. My son is convinced, by the way, that the cicadas are here. He's like, I heard them. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if you heard him or not. I have not really heard him yet, but he is convinced he has. And my son is pretty observant. And so I don't just dismiss him when he says it. He knows what he usually is on. He's usually right when he if he sees, he's got eagle eyes. I don't know how he spots like deer and things in the woods, but, so he's usually right. So, but I haven't noticed him yet. So I'm kind of hoping that Sarah sent us a message earlier on our inter-office chat that Philly might get missed. I'm in the Philadelphia area, so I'm hoping that's true. But not holding my breath.
I remember several years ago when the 17 years ago, I guess, when it came out, I was with my family. I was a little kid, obviously. We were on the way to Florida, I think, maybe for vacation. I don't know. We were in the Carolinas, and we stopped at a rest stop, and I went to go to the bathroom, and they were everywhere. I mean, all throughout the bathroom, they were absolutely
horrible
everywhere. And I remember going to the bathroom, and one was flying right around me, and I just grabbed it and threw it up against a wall because I was like, I do not want this thing near me, because I was so.
No. They're horrible.
So annoyed because they are just everywhere, and they are no respecters of boundaries.
No, they're not. They fly aimlessly into something, and it's just they're
something
awful.
Or someone.
Yes, clearly things were made in creation that kind of signify. There's some things that signify beauty and good, and there's some that signify the opposite of that. Yeah. And I think cicadas fall into that category. So
absolutely.